I want to talk about content writing in general and then get a little more specific in terms of what you should be doing as far as writing your content for these Amazon sites that you're building. The first thing I want to talk about is content research. Now, if you already have a lot of knowledge about a subject, you may not need to do any research at all. However, you'll likely reach a point in site building where you want to target something that you really don't have any personal knowledge about. And so you're kind of forced to go out and learn this stuff for yourself to truly be able to write useful content that you can put on your site. Now, if you do not already know about the subject and you do have to do this extra research, there are really a lot of ways that you can accomplish this. Obviously, Google should be your best friend when you're doing research. Simply go out and look up information that's already out there about the subject. You can sometimes see from reading through content on other pages where maybe they didn't go far enough or give enough detail about a particular subject, and you can kind of expand on those areas. So in a lot of ways, you can end up rehashing what's already out there, but doing it in a more useful and constructive way than other people have done it. And you can actually beat those people out in the search rankings by even having the same information as them. Obviously, you would not want to be copying any content during this process. You want to be learning the content. Amazon is also a really good tool. Just like you use Amazon in the beginning with niche research and going and learning about specific products, you can do the same thing when you're learning about your niche. I really like to use the customer question and answer and also the customer review sections to truly learn about the product and what people are hoping that it's going to do for them and what things it has actually been able to do for people. This kind of information really can give you a lot of great starting points for your own content writing, especially if you're not really quite sure what you should be talking about. Now, I also recommend to focus on useful content. While it is good to present facts to people, you want it to be done in a way that kind of makes sense to them. Something that kind of hits home and makes it feel like this was written for them in their particular situation. So I like to try to get personal whenever possible, give stories about myself, talk about my experiences and things of that nature. And also I try to be specific. Not only will this help you out with search rankings because you will explain subjects more thoroughly, but when you talk about specific situations, instead of just being vague about it, you're using all of this extra keyword content that normally wouldn't be there if you did a vague article as opposed to a more specific article. Now, just to give you a brief example here of what I'm talking about, here is one particular article that I've prepared for my website. This is going to be geared towards gaming and how it can be faster using solid-state hard drives. Now, I'm not a crazy gaming fanatic, but I do like to play a game every now and again, and I have a fairly powerful work computer because the things I do for work on my computer are pretty taxing, and they don't normally work out very good when you try to do it on a standard retail computer, at least not to the extent that I will often do things. So I have a bit of an advantage there. It's nice to have that. Even though I do it for work purposes, it also translates to the gaming world. And even though I'm not a crazy gaming fanatic, I know there's a lot of other people out there like me that may just like to play an occasional game in their free time, and they would like for it to actually run well. There might be specific problems. They might wait forever for things to load up. And so I talk about this kind of stuff in my article. I get specific. I talk about my own upgrades that I was doing, why I was doing them, the kind of benefits that I was able to see as a result. And I even get specific and actually mention a more modern game that's actually not even technically released yet. It's an early access game, but it's extremely popular. And as a result, things like these specific mentions of games or operating systems or video editing software that I'll be talking about throughout different articles on this website, those things help to bring me extra keyword traffic because people will go out and search for information that is specific to those software titles. So you can not only help to connect people to what it is that you're talking about and make them feel like this is going to work for them because you give so much information about your own situation that they can kind of visualize it applying to them. And they feel a lot more confident with trusting your advice on the products that you're going to recommend and obviously proceeding on to making a sale in the end as well. I'm going to get into talking about this content in a little more detail here as we proceed on. I want to go ahead and move on to my next point though, which is to include extra content. You could obviously fill a page with nothing but a solid article like what you see here. However, there are all kinds of additional types of content besides just plain text that you can include in a website. And you really don't need a lot of technical experience or anything special to be able to do this type of stuff. I'm talking about taking a larger article and breaking it up so when it is viewed on your web page, it's not overwhelming to somebody. It doesn't appear as though it is a long, never-ending article. You have things like different headers throughout your article. You can see one of these right here in mine, and they kind of proceed on as I go. Every couple of paragraphs or so, I might have a different header that helps to break up my content into more meaningful pieces. Not only is this helpful for the people that are reading your content, but it's helpful for search engines that you're wanting to get this traffic from too. Other stuff like quoting either people or even other websites can be extremely useful, especially when there's some kind of a well-known weight to that person's name and or the website. For example, if you have a site that is promoting tech-based products, you can go out and find the biggest tech reviewing website or company that exists out there, and you can quote what their reviews are, give a little snapshot of some of the text that they have said, or even just quote the rankings that they assign to these different products. All that kind of stuff, especially when you are giving credit where it is due to these people and websites, that kind of stuff is completely legitimate and also helps to make your site more useful ultimately. Other things like important links. it is quite okay to link out to another website, as long as it is done in moderation and it is highly relevant to your content. I have often found myself linking out to another relevant site, or maybe to an informational page, something like Wikipedia, where I know the person is likely not going to end up making a purchase there, but that extra information that I'm directing them to can be extremely useful. So you're not only helping people, once again, that are reading your site, but search engines look at this kind of stuff too. They will look at the sites that you are linking to and look for some kind of a relevancy factor there. And so you can actually improve the relevancy of yours by linking up with relevant sites that are well respected by Google. Other things that are pretty simple to do, things like adding images into your articles, creating lists. This can be simple bullet points or numbered lists that are describing a series of steps that somebody might need to take in order to accomplish something. Other stuff like videos, whether it's a video you've created yourself or videos that you go out and find on YouTube, for example. You can embed this kind of stuff into your articles to make them much more useful, more relevant to your topic. So beyond just writing, I would encourage you to think about these different aspects and consider what you can add to your article to spice it up a little bit, to make it a little more interesting and appealing, and even to make it more comprehensive to where people are more inclined to trust what you have to say about whatever it is that you're talking about. Going back to that tech example where maybe you quote a well-known company's review. Let's say you're building a site about video games, and maybe you quote IGN or something like that, and simply list, what they have rated that particular title, 9 out of 10 stars or whatever the case may be. Then when people see that, and they also see your own review, when you say it's good, they're less inclined to think that it's a biased opinion. When you're quoting other people claiming essentially the same or similar thing as you, then they're kind of less inclined to go out and try to hunt down that information for themselves. They're a little more inclined to then focus on your information and take it as fact. Now, the other thing that you want to be focusing on beyond your writing and making sure you're including extra content along with it is making sure that it's going to be easy to read for people. You want to check your spelling and also grammar. If English happens to not be your primary language, try to find a friend that does speak it very well. And if nothing else, see if they can just take a quick read through the articles that you write and maybe just point out particular areas that don't read well or maybe should be rephrased slightly. This kind of stuff can really go a long way, especially if you are targeting an American audience, for example. Now, when it comes to how you're gearing your content for search engine rankings, I have this listed down at the bottom instead of up at the top of my list for a very specific reason. This should honestly be less of a focus for you until you have basically completed an article. Then go back through it and ask yourself if you have these different parts to it. If you have used your primary keyword that you're trying to target with that particular page, you want to make sure that you are using it. However, you don't want to be overusing it. And I feel like whenever people are told you want to target one article to a specific keyword phrase, when they're writing out that article, they're a little more focused on that keyword targeting. And so they tend to repeat the keyword phrase over and over again. And you kind of end up with keyword spam as a result, instead of a useful article that is actually about your subject. Now, another thing that I recommend to do that both of these things kind of tie into one another really is using semantic words and also checking keyword density. I want to show you some actual examples of this. So this will make a little bit more sense. Let's say I am targeting the phrase solid state drive. If I wanted to find what Google might consider to be semantic words for this particular keyword phrase, I can actually use a little bit of a keyword density trick where I search for the phrase itself, and then I go through for each of the different pages that are listed in those results. I essentially strip all of the content out of those pages and analyze them to figure out what are the more commonly used words, and more importantly, what words are used besides the primary keyword phrase that I'm trying to target. Those other words are going to end up being your semantic keyword phrases. Now, obviously, this is not a perfect, surefire way. There are a lot of other ranking factors that go in besides simply the content that is on the page. However, this is also why I take a bit of a sampling of a number of sites instead of just one to try to get a more accurate picture of that kind of thing. So I want to show you how I actually do this so you can do this for your own articles as well. I first go and search for the phrase keyword density. This takes you to the number one result here is a site called SEObook.com, and they have this free keyword density analyzer tool. I actually like to use this to analyze the density of articles that I write. You can click on plain text here and paste your articles in. You can also provide a list of website addresses here, and it will go and analyze those websites for you. So I can go in and, for example, look at the Wikipedia page. I can copy the link that is for it. Sorry, I don't want to copy the Google link. I want to go to the page and get the actual link for that. And then I'm going to come back here and punch it into the keyword density analyzer. Now, the one thing I like to change is the minimum word length. I like to change this to 1 just so I can see all of the one-word phrases that are being used too and what their densities might be. So I just click on Submit now, and this will take a look at that page for me and all of the keywords that are contained on it. I probably gave it a pretty big page to take a look at. Yeah, that was 12,000 words that I had to analyze there. As you can see though, when I analyze this page, I can see important things that are being talked about that relate to my subject matter. Beyond solid state drive, I have SSD and SSDs, obviously the abbreviation for solid state drive here. Other common words: drives, data, memory, flash storage, disk performance. When I go over to the 2 and the 3-word phrases, it gives me a different picture of what may be actually discussed in that content. For example, flash memory. I had memory and flash that were in some of the most commonly used words here. But when I see that they're also commonly used together, it's a pretty good indication that this has something to do with your subject matter. Especially then if you go and you run this same type of analyzing on additional pages that are ranked for that same keyword. If you go through and run the top 5 pages or even the top 10 pages and compare the results that you're getting from all of them, you're going to see some common phrases that pop up on all of them. And I could pretty much guarantee for solid state drive that flash memory would be one of them. However, if I did not know about this subject ahead of time, I might not know anything about flash memory. I might not know that it was related to a solid state drive. So I can find out some things here that maybe I need to go and research further and figure out, okay, how does this connected and what can I talk about on my site relating to this subject and, connecting it to my primary subject. So all these different phrases, form factors, hard disk, flash memory, I could likely go a little further down and find additional ones. PCI Express, Linux kernel, Tom's Hardware is actually a popular tech review website, operating system, memory cards. There's all kinds of phrases in here. You do sometimes have to look for them a little bit, but it's really pretty easy to find them in this manner. So the whole point here of finding these different semantic words is to essentially make sure that you are using them within your content, and maybe to even give you some additional ideas if you find yourself lacking in content on a particular article. You can find out some semantic phrases and you can have a couple paragraphs talking about that particular subtopic. Now, the same thing I've done here for other pages that are already in the Google rankings. You can also do this for your own writing too. However, I would encourage you to not get too fixated on trying to hit certain percentages or anything like that with your own writing. Just as an example though, if I use this same article once again and copy my article, take it over to this site, and paste in my text, I can analyze the information that I have in my article. So I can see how frequently I might have used my target keywords. In this one, my target keyword has something to do with games and gaming, computers, and solid state drive. So I do have a healthy mix of each of these target phrases in my article, but there's really no one phrase that is overwhelming all of the other ones. Some people will try to go for upwards of 5% keyword density for whatever their target keyword phrase may be. But I really feel like you don't have to have your target keyword phrase as the number one phrase on your entire website for Google to actually respect it. Your phrase simply needs to be there and somewhat prevalent. So I like to try to see whatever my target phrase is, maybe in the top 10 or so of the phrases that are ranking up here. And I like to see the density stay pretty low. I've actually seen my best results with 2% and even 1% keyword densities for target keyword phrases. And I kind of go for 500 to 1,000 words, give or take, with any given article that I write. But if there is a lot more content than that that's going to fit your subject, by all means, write a 2,000 or 3,000 word article. The previous search that I did here for solid state drive on Google, the number one article there had 12,000 words. So you can see how Google does indeed respect articles that are a lot higher in word count. There's a lot more content that they can index, and there's a lot more of these semantic words that are going to end up being used. And this does help to drive up the rankings. Wikipedia is not invincible. If they don't have a page of good content, they're not going to rank up there, and it's actually possible to beat them. I've beat Wikipedia on quite a few rankings by offering more content than they actually have, because they're not as all-inclusive as they would really like to be. There's plenty of subject matters where they're lacking on.